What's up guys, welcome to episode 2 of the HC playthrough memes, and in this one we're carrying on straight where we left off in the previous episode where we defeated Rye, and we're going to make our way onto Lagan. And I was very worried because he is the buggiest boss in the entire game. So Lagan is basically last Epoch's attempt to create a Kitava style boss within the game, but in his current state he's just absolutely horrible, and like the general consensus is he is the worst fight. It's why, thank God, the campaign actually ends right before the Lagan part of the story starts, right? Like, you can complete all your idle and passive slots within chapter 7, so you don't have to do chapter 8 at all. It's absolutely great. But you obviously have to still complete the monolith for him, and that's like the issue. The issue actually is that he just disables a lot of builds, but not due to a mechanic or like a skill he has or anything. He's just buggy. Like, I've had it where flame wraiths don't work on him, rip blood also sometimes I feel like doesn't work on him. Other people have said how like some minion abilities don't work on him either, because like they just can't target him. He has a very weird hitbox, and on top of that he has a lot of one-shot mechanics going on too, like just a generally like not a friendly boss. And I'm really hoping when 1.0 comes out they do have some either changes or fixes for him that just make it a little bit less of just an annoying fight, really. So before we actually take on Lagan himself, I did have a few like keys, dungeon keys, lying around, so I thought, you know what, let's try power up a tiny bit first. And definitely I far prefer the Soulfire Bastion dungeon over the Lightless Arbor, just mainly because I like the gambling part of it at the end, you know, more than the gambling of the other dungeon, because like you have to spend so much gold, and it does take a while to actually gather up that gold again. Like, you don't, especially if you're ending up spending hundreds of thousands or even like millions of gold on it, it can be annoying if you don't get anything good, especially if you're running tier 1. The thing with the Temporal Sanctum, the other dungeon, is that while it has like the insane reward at the end of, you know, like the legendary potential stuff, you know, where you make an item actually legendary with it, that's its only good reward, I feel. Like, the items you get from killing Jorah, minus the uniques that Jorah can drop, are a bit lackluster, especially compared to the other two. Like, I've never been like, if I didn't have an item that had legendary potential, or if I didn't have a need for one of the Jorah uniques, there's like no reason to just be like, oh yeah, let's go farm Jorah now. Like, there's no reason. The items it drops are just meh. So I'm kind of hoping maybe in the future they'll add like a tiny bit of extra stuff to that dungeon. Maybe a system where like you can add one legendary potential onto a unique without any, but then you give up the thing of being able to use to actually make it legendary during the same run, or like, you know, anything else that someone can think of, right? Just like something else, another reason to run that dungeon other than just the legendary potential part. It is definitely, like, don't get me wrong, it is currently the best dungeon in the game, for sure. But I just feel like it could be way cooler, like have more incentive to run it other than just that. Yeah. The boss fight went alright. It's only tier 1, so like it's not meant to be difficult, but my single target still has like a lot of improvement left to do for it. But then again, none of my skills are maxed, and I'm still using some of my like garbage leveling gear. Like, my rings could do with a massive improvement still, my weapon is not the best, so I'm alright with it. The gambling, however, did not go as well. I tried for different things just to see if we could get lucky, if not with armor, if with weapons, or maybe even some accessories, but just absolutely nothing. Then again, it's only tier 1, like I said, so I wasn't expecting the best or anything.
Yeah, lucky. Oh, lucky.
so here we have the buggy boy himself, Lagan. As you can probably see, Rip Blood is just not working. It's not being cast. I'm not sure why. I am targeting him. I tried targeting like the ground further down. I'm not sure if I meant to target even further down and just actually target the ground and somehow that affects him. I'm not sure. Like, the only thing that's actually dealing any damage to him now is my Death Seal and Transplant when I'm able to transplant onto him, but sometimes I felt Transplant wasn't activating and that's why he didn't have Bone Curse. Now during the fight I couldn't always tell if the Bone Curse was on him or not, because obviously you're trying to stay alive, but in general it's very gimmicky. Thoroughly did not enjoy this fight at all, especially the end, you know, when the wave starts moving around and mini stuns you. Just all around horrible. Ugh, never want to do it again. So on the top of my head, I can't think of any like really good uniques or anything that drop from Lagan, so that means that we hopefully never have to do this boss until we level a new character again, which is really nice. And even if we did need an item from him, I think I would just play a build that doesn't. It's just an overall horrible fight. I don't know anyone that enjoys this fight at all, and I really hope they fix it with 1.0 when they do a big overhaul of the game, or else like any new players that come in are just gonna start complaining about Lagan 2, and it's just gonna, yeah. So did a small Rune of Ascendance gamble, and oh my god, we actually got the Marina's Lost Soul. And even better, it has some actually really nice rolls. It's not like perfect rolled on everything, but it's close on some. Like the only way this could be better if it is like one we get on with legendary potential. This is super hype. So the thing is, if you were to directly farm for this item, right, you'd have to go to the Stolen Lance timeline, which is on the left side of the monoliths, and then it's also an uncommon drop, so you know you might have to farm for a bit. It can be annoying. But the thing is, if you go onto, I'm just going to mention this, everyone probably knows it, but I'm just going to mention it anyway. You can go on the Last Epoch Tools website, and in their item database, if you filter by item base type, you can see like it's written under the item like, oh, this is commonly used for so and so unique and like that. So as I was mentioning with Profane Wands, right, if you look at Profane Wand, it says this is used as a base type for Marina's Lost Soul. Now the only downside of doing it this way is that by using a Rune of Ascendance, it does have a much lower chance to come with legendary potential, which means that while it's good for the, you know, normal monoliths and then like up to 150 corruption or something like that, you can't use it all the way to the end game because you really want one with at least 1 or 2 legendary potential, because if you manage to hit like cast speed, spell damage, critical strike multiplier or chance or something like that on it, then you're pretty much set with that weapon as your best in slot. And so it's just something to think about, but for now it's perfectly good to use. So a funny thing in the Reign of Dragons boss fight, the fix that they applied throughout the game, where if a boss or an enemy is doing like a stationary type ability, you could push it around if you're walking next to it in melee range. Still applies to this boss, it still doesn't work. Now in the campaign you used to be able to do it with a lot of those bosses too. Pantheon comes to mind, and so does like the voids, like a lot of the void bosses, and I wasn't able to do it to those during the campaign, but it still doesn't seem to work on this boss, which is kind of funny.
Behold
So I decided to do the Age of Winter monolith first, purely because the end boss has a chance of dropping the bow that lets you play bow mage, and bow mage is something I've played a lot in softcore, and it's an incredibly fun build because you can like wipe entire screens with it. It's very tanky, so it would be great for hardcore, and overall just be really fun to use, I think. The only thing is that while it does have a common chance to drop, this boss has like a bunch of other things that are also a common chance to drop, I think. So it's like a bit gimmicky. So if we don't get it, that's perfectly fine because I plan on farming this in Empowered anyway, because you can also drop, I forget if it's the Claw or the Fang, I think it's the Fang, because if I want to make a Summon Wolves build for later that can transition into Squirrels, it's super nice, because then if we drop a Fang with LP, then it's just immediately enabled, which is really nice.
Shut up. Do not stand in my way. I did what I must to protect.
Another quick gamble, and we got an Aberrant's Call with decent rolls. This is good because all we need now is just one more idol with chance to summon Flame Wraiths, and we can make a Flame Wraith build. Super hype. I've always found the Spirits of Fire timeline to be the easiest, purely because the end boss does a lot of like fire and necrotic damage, and if you have a high amount of necrotic damage mitigation, which this build has an absolute butt ton of, like it's absolutely insane how much necrotic damage negation we have. It's just completely negligent, like we barely take any damage at all. It's kind of funny. I think a big reason why this boss in specific feels very weak is like, unlike the other bosses where there's always a singular boss and that boss is like, you know, the big bad at the end. This has got 3 mini bosses, none of which are very like spectacular in any regard. They don't have any big one shots, they don't have any cool mechanics or anything. They have their ground degen that they leave once you kill them, but you can kill multiple at once, so it kind of trivializes that too. So maybe in the future they might improve this boss, who knows. Potential EQ Werebear hype. I'm leveling 1 as Cold Dot anyway right now, so this could be a nice transition. This absolute abomination that you're witnessing on the screen now are my multiple failed attempts at defeating Gaspar. He's a very rippy boss. As soon as I took enough damage that knocked me back into regular form out of Reaper form, I just booked it, because Reaper form, even with my cooldown recovery, has a 16-second cooldown, and if I got hit by the ice attack or, you know, the triple elemental attack, then I'm just dead. Like, I can tank the void beam, like, you know, the ground void degen thing, and the fire attack fine, but if I got hit by either of those 2 other mechanics, I'm just dead, so I just booked it out. I'm not risking it in hardcore.
Why you run? It is hopeless. My magic has no equal.
So by some absolute miracle, I didn't die in any of the previous ones and actually managed to teleport out. The only downside of teleporting out of the fight is that it counts as though you failed the echo. So say if you're like, you know, when you're playing softcore and then you die in the echo, right? It kicks you out the echo and you don't get the rewards, and you also lose a tiny bit of stability. I don't know if that's only for bosses or for the actual, you know, mini echoes as well, but what happened here was every time it kicked me out, because I needed to recover like 10 to 15 stability, I had to complete another one. And the thing was, I only had like very yikes modifiers left, so I was like scouring through the entire monolith web trying to find non-yikes modifiers, and I settled on these, and luckily managed to do it. If I couldn't do it this time, the next one I'd be doing with would be like 100% increased void damage, which is kinda yikes.
face this nightmare.
So that's all for this one. Thank you for watching the video. As now we've unlocked empowered monoliths, the next episode will definitely include a lot of those, and I'm also thinking to include some dungeon progression as well. Still haven't figured out how I want the other classes to come in, like how to show them off in the video, but for now, yep, thank you for watching.